Heyo, Hipper here. So if you're a big Aliens fan just like me, and you have actually bought Aliens Dark Descent and you're having a bit of trouble with the game, well, don't despair, because it is a really difficult game. But in this video here, I'll just give you a few pointers on how to get started in the game, right? And the first thing I want to let you know is, although the game does have a prologue where you're like taught the basics and kind of easily rolled into the game, it's not until you actually finish the first mission on the planet that you actually start to get the hang of this game here. So if you're in this first mission and you still don't really understand the game, you don't really know what you're supposed to do and how the mechanics of the game work, don't despair, because that is normal, and you won't really, like I said, get the hang of this game until at the very earliest the second mission, really. Something you will learn quickly though already in the first mission is that you need to use your APC or ARC to get around on the maps, because it keeps your squad safe when you are moving from one area of the map to the next. And if you run into aliens or other enemies on the way, the APC will just take care of them with its built-in gun. It saves your ammo, it saves your health, and it keeps your squad safe. So it is the most important thing to keep in mind when you play the game. Of course, you can only use the APC in the outside or where there's a lot of room, but it does help a lot. So don't forget to use it, right? Now the next tip here is to rest your squad as well. You don't have to do it all the time, and you shouldn't do it all the time, because every time you rest, you have to lock down a room by welding the door, and that costs resources. So of course, any room you can find with only one door is preferable, but sometimes, that's just not the way the aliens let you actually get away with stuff. So sometimes you'll have to weld 2, 3, even 4 doors to be able to rest your squad. And of course that costs resources, and resources are scarce, and you'll have to make these really tough calls in the game, where do I use 3 resources to weld 3 doors and be able to rest my squad and save the game, because that's what it does as well. Or do I continue out to find a room with only 1 door, so I can weld that with only 1 resource and save the other 2 for later, so potentially being able to save 3 times instead of 1. So these are, calculations that you have to make on the move, and it's not easy, I tell you that. So new resources can be found in the wild. There's many containers lying around that you can loot for, ammunition and like sentry guns and stuff like that, health as well. So always pick up everything you possibly can in the game, because you're going to need to heal your Marines very, very often, and also give them, speed, so they don't get so scared. And once you get into battle, this is where the game shows that it is tough, and it even warns you when you start the game. It tells you this is a tough game, so be prepared. And wow, is it tough. I played it on medium difficulty, and I put it down to easy because I just found it too frustrating. And I think everyone should do that, at least for the first playthrough, until you get the hang of it. And then the second, you can possibly think about putting up a little bit higher. So the combat is fairly easy. It can be in real time, or it can be like paused, like here, where you set up your squad and put down suppressive fires, and set up mines, and kind of traps and stuff like that. The problem is that you cannot really control your Marines individually. So although this is a squad-based tactical shooter, sort of, your squad is always just in the position that they happen to be in once the enemies arrive, and you can't really set up flanking or anything like that. You'll just have to make do with whatever position your Marines happen to be in when the enemy shows up. And the game is built with this in mind, but it's still a little bit limiting in choices you have.
Good job, Marines. Next round's on me. Now let's see if someone survived that beast.
Oh, and if you find Gallagher...
So missions can be done over and over, really, but the longer you take, the harder it'll get. So it's still, again, one of those very difficult choices you have to make. For example, if you're down 1 Marine, do you abandon the mission, go back, lick your wounds, like upgrade a few Marines or whatever, and come back and try again and then face harder enemies, or do you try to persevere with the three Marines you have left, right? So it's difficult, and before you get into battle, of course you have to make sure you have the tools you need, the supplies you could possibly need in that mission. And again, that's also difficult because obviously everything is limited, so you can pick what you think you will need, but you can't really know until you're in. And also researching new weapons is also a big part of the game. You have to do that, otherwise you will not be able to progress. So this is done between missions, and it's not just that, it's also actually buying those weapons that you research, which costs resources that you can find down on the planets while you're doing your missions. So everything is kind of interconnected here, and if you're a little slack on picking up stuff, you might not be able to upgrade your Marines or your weapons into what you really need. And also, if you have too many wounded Marines and you don't have enough medics, you're going to have a squad that's not 100%, and that's almost certain death. So there's a lot to keep in mind here, and although it's not as advanced as some of the other games like this out there, you have to keep stuff like morale up, and obviously the health of your Marines, and you need to get enough resources, and you need to know when to call off a mission if it's not going too well, and you need to know where the objectives are, and you need to know which Marines you need for that particular mission. They all have different skills, and you can of course upgrade those as you go along. So if all this management sounds complicated, it really isn't. It's only like 5 screens where you have to do a little bit of stuff, but the thing is just not to forget to do any of it, and also just keep going at those missions, because they are difficult even on the easiest difficulty, and some of the missions are actually really, really huge, and with lots of objectives and secondary objectives. Of course you have a map, but it's passable. It's not the best map out there. It's not the best I've seen, and you can deploy motion sensors around the map, so to warn you of enemy activity. But again, it's something you have to keep in mind while you're working your way through the mission. So if you forget about it, then it's just too bad. I guess you can go back and do it, but it'll waste time, and you are, risking antagonizing the aliens even more. So having your whole squad wiped out, it happens, and it will happen more than a dozen times. I can assure you of that, because, like I said, it's a difficult game. At least you can load, but if you do get a Marine killed, this game is with permadeath, so he's lost forever, right? After each mission, you get a lowdown of how you did, how many objectives you completed, how many resources you collected, and stuff like that. And you'll be able to promote your Marines, and this is really important, so don't forget to do this, because promoting the Marines makes them specialized, for example here, into a medic or a sergeant, and there's many more options than this, and you have to have this lined out. You have to have a plan for this also, and that's why I think you need to play the first mission, you need to go through that, and then things will start to click into place, right? Because after the prologue and while you're doing the first mission, this game can seem very overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. It is a simple game, but it's just that the UI is not perfect, and it doesn't really explain anything. The prologue tries, but there's still a lot of unknowns really that you just have to experiment and figure out on your own. But if you can handle this, then Dark Descent is a really good game. It's also really cheap. It's about half the price of a normal game, and I think it's definitely worth the money. I haven't even got all the way through it yet, and I've been playing it for about 10 hours. It's really entertaining, especially if you're into the Alien universe. Of course, then it's actually one of the best games out there. I think only Alien Isolation is just a slight bit better, but in some terms, this game here is actually even better than Alien Isolation. I think if you can just get to grips with the difficulty and the fact that nothing is really explained to you. Other than that, I can highly recommend this game if you have any interest in Alien. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you out there.